One of the strangest things about this week's Parashat Ki Teitei is the Torah seems to make a concession. It speaks about war, and it speaks about one of the challenges of war. But the challenge over here is a challenge of finding a beautiful woman. The Torah then says, if this beautiful woman, you find yourself attracted, then the man who goes to war can take this woman as a spoil of war, as it were. And on a moral level, on a practical level, on every level that we can, at a decent level, it seems to be really, I don't want to use the word preposterous, but that's the word that I would use. But not only that, the Torah continues and tells us, and this is guilt by association, this is something which I think we can say it's really what the Gemara says, is that this starts off a process. The continuation of this process is the next section of the Torah. When a person has more than one wife, a wife which is loved and a wife who is hated. It goes on and speaks about the section about having a rebellious child. And what the Gemara, and as I said, the commentaries, Rashi, others point this out, that there is a process over here, and the process is related. It starts off with this woman being taken home, and then escalates to having an entire dysfunctional relationship, and it continues on to having a dysfunctional family. And the Torah seems to be telling us something very, very simple. That if you have a dysfunctional relationship, don't be surprised if other areas of your life begin to unravel. And perhaps that's the message. Let's go back a step. On a moral level, as I said, this is something which is extremely difficult to possibly to defend. The Gemara makes a strange statement when it says that this concession is keneged hayetzer hara. It is, and now there's two ways to understand this. Keneged hayetzer hara could be, it's a concession to the yetzer hara, and it's the word that I've been using from the beginning. The second possibility is that keneged yetzer hara means that this is a strategy against the yetzer hara, which means there's certain times where a person becomes very spiritually weak. And there's certain times to say that something is not allowed is actually the best way to make something enticing. If the Torah says that when you go to war, and I want to pause here for a second, war is very, very confusing morally. All the things we were told that we can't do. You can't take something which isn't yours. You can't kill your friends. That's what war is. War is when one is ready to take a life, one is to take things which was not theirs before, be it property, be it land, which means war is something which is very confusing morally. And on top of all that, so there are other laws which are suspended, including laws of keeping kosher and so on, are suspended during times of battle. War is life and death. So when a person is in this situation, this state of total spiritual confusion, the Torah goes and says something interesting. This thing which normally would not be allowed, it just now became allowed. But there's one thing that you need to think about, and those are the consequences. That if you take home a captive from battle, especially if you already have a spouse, that this is not going to be a good situation. Think more about it. Think about the child who's going to be produced from this type of relationship. This child is being raised by parents that do not have the same value system. You have the mother who was taken from battle from an alien culture and alien beliefs and different values, and you have a father who has different values who did take his mother by force. Very poor impulse control. So what kind of child do we think we're going to have? When we learn later on that this child may exhibit poor impulse control, why are we going to be so surprised? But maybe that's really what the message of the Torah is. Think about consequences. Think about what's going to happen. I think there's many decisions that we make in life that when it's only us as individuals, we're willing to make concessions to our own yetzer hara, to our own evil inclinations, to our own desires. But when we start to think about what those decisions have or how they impact upon others, especially our children, maybe that's something which can help us fight that impulse. How many of us want to be embarrassed in front of our children? How many of us want to lose the respect of our children? How many of us want to raise children that won't understand us at all? That's really what seems to be what the Torah is telling us over here. There's a concession to the yetzer hara, but this concession is really a way of outflanking the yetzer hara, a way of fooling the yetzer hara. The Yetzer Hara tells us to do things which are not allowed. Over here, the Torah says it's allowed, it's okay. The consequences, on the other hand, are not okay. And that's the best way of fighting the Yetzer Hara, is not to think about the immediate pleasure that one may have, but rather think about the consequences. And if we can't think about the consequences, how it affects us, then think about how it may one day affect our children.